Alrighty, guys, we have a practice spring midterm here, 2023. Let's jump right in. The first question on this video of this practice midterm is a solving systems problem. We could already see that the answer is no solution, but let's show how to get there. So whenever you want to solve a system, you could choose to use substitution method or linear combinations method, which is also known as a elimination method. I think in class we've concluded that elimination method is great, right? So if you wanted to use elimination method, you would have to first make sure that everything's organized. X's on top of X's, Y's on top of Y's, number on top of numbers, and equal sign on top of equal sign. In this case, it's not organized. You see this top equation is ready to graph. It's in slope-intercept form. This bottom equation is in standard form. And when you want to use linear combinations or elimination method, you want both to look like this standard form, ax plus by equals c. So what we'd have to do is modify that top equation first by adding 2x to both sides. So you'd add 2x. That way you could rewrite the top equation as 2x plus y equaling 5. Okay, now the bottom equation, we're just going to rewrite it the same. It's 10x plus 5y equals 10. So now that they're lined up, x is on top of x's, y is on top of y's, equal on top of equal, and number on top of number, now we could think about combining the lines to be able to get a letter to eliminate. So it's up to you if you want to cancel out x's or cancel out y's. You choose. I'm going to decide to cancel out y's. And in order for this y to cancel with these 5 y's, well, this would have to be the exact opposite of positive 5. So I need to change this 1y to a negative 5y so it'll cancel with the positive 5y. So how am I going to change the 1 to become a negative 5? Well, I'm going to have to multiply the whole top equation by negative 5. So when I distribute 5 times 2x, it's negative 10x. 5 times 1y, that's going to be a negative 5y. And 5 times 5 is negative 25. Now, the bottom equation, we're going to leave it the same. 10x plus 5y equals 10. And now, as you could see, we are ready to combine the lines to get the y's to eliminate, right? The negative 5y and the positive 5y really eliminate, and there are no more y's. But the problem is when you combine the negative 10x with the positive 10x, that also eliminates. And as you can see over here, the negative 25 and the 10, that does not eliminate. Actually, when you combine the negative 25 and the 10, you get a negative 15. And the equal sign's right here. And what's left over on the left side, everything canceled out. In other words, there is nothing left over. So what does this say right here? It says 0 equals negative 5. That is an impossibility. 0 is never going to equal any number besides 0. So right there is where you say no, as in no solution. Okay. What does that mean visually? If you were to have graphed both lines, you will see that they are parallel. They do not intersect. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. On this next question, it reads, which of the graph represents a system with no solution? Okay, so we know that if a system, which is really two equations, if it has no solution, that means that they don't actually cross. So it would have to be these parallel lines right here. Because remember, what does a line actually represent? It represents all the answers that exist to one equation. What does the other line represent? All the answers that exist to the other equation. So if they were to cross, then you would be able to find that location, that coordinate, and that'll be the point that both lines share, which means that that would be the solution to the system. Okay. So again, my practice tests compared to my actual tests, I just switch a word, switch a number. In this case, maybe instead of which graph represents a system of equations with no solution, maybe I say which graph represents a system with infinitely many solutions. Oh, then that would be the same exact line, right? One line lands on top of the other. They have an infinite amount of answers in common. They don't just have one answer. Or if I said, which graph represents a system that only has one solution? Well, that would be this one right here, okay? Or even this one over here, because over here, even though you don't see it crossing, eventually over here it will intersect. So it does have one solution, just like this one does over here. So please be very careful with the words that you read, and let's move on. All right, another system that we need to solve, but check out the instructions. It's a little different than what you're used to. It says solve the system, but only state the y value, okay? So usually when we solve a system, you solve both for x and y, and you state your answer as a coordinate, an ordered pair, an x and a y value. Right here, they only want you to state the y value, and I'll tell you why in a little bit right now. But on the test, they may ask you only state the x value or only state the y value, or then again, they may ask you to give the complete coordinate of the solution, right? The complete x and y value. So let's solve it first. As you can see, they're lined up. X is on top of x's, y is on top of y's, number on top of number. So we are able to combine. And if we do combine the lines, you will see that the x's eliminate. You see, that's a positive 2 and that's a negative 2. That tells us that they are ready to combine the lines, right? Linear combinations. So the 2x and the negative 2x eliminate. The 4 and the 6 gives you a 10, and we're talking about y's, equaling, when you combine 10 and negative 30, that'll give you a negative 20. So this is a simple one-step equation in blue. 10 times y equals negative 20. You want to get rid of that multiplication of 10 in front of the y, you're going to divide by 10, and that'll be y equals negative 2. That's what they're asking for, state the y value. So we already know that the answer will be this one right here, as you can see. There it is. That one's the only one in green. Now, what if they would have said state the x value? Well, you'd have to finish off this system. You got to finish off solving it. So you would take the negative 2 and plug it back into the y value and then work it out. So like on the top equation, it reads 2x plus 4y. But notice instead of y, I put parentheses, equals 10. That's exactly what it says. 2x plus 4y equals 10. 2x plus 4y equals 10. I put parentheses instead of y. Why? Because I know what y equals. Y equals negative 2. So instead of y, I'm going to put that y value of negative 2 right in there. And then I'm going to solve it. That'll be a negative 8 equals 10 with a 2x in front. Now I want to solve for x. I need to get rid of the minus 8 and then get rid of the multiplication of 2. I want to start by getting rid of the minus 8, doing the opposite, plus 8, that'll eliminate, it rhymes. 2x equals 10 plus 8 is 18. Let's divide by 2 for my final step here, divide by 2. X does equal 9, okay? So if it were to say only state the x value, you would select 9, that's the one you would pick. But it says only state the y value, which we knew was negative 2, about halfway through this explanation, right? So we already know what the answer is, negative 2. Or they may ask you to give the complete answer, which would in coordinate format be the x value first, 9 comma the y value second, negative 2. So you're probably thinking, why the heck did they go from having us give the regular x and y value to just one of them? You see, if they gave you a bunch of coordinates, like let's say they gave you the first option being 9, negative 2, and then the other one 10, negative 2, maybe 5, 1, and negative 2 something. Technically, if you have a bunch of answers, you could actually plug in the x value into the x, the 9 into the x, and the negative 2 into the y, and seeing if it actually works and gives you 10, and then the 9 and the negative 2, plugging it in, seeing if it actually gives you negative 30. I mean, that's how you double check an answer anyway. So if they gave you a bunch of complete answers, then you could just plug in the x and the y value and seeing if it actually works. So like, let's say this was an option, or let's say you weren't too sure about your work. You could always plug in the 9 right here. 2 times 9 is 18. Plug in the negative 2 right there. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 18 plus negative 8 is 10, right? Because 18 take away 8 is 10. So that works. Down here, if you plug in a 9 right here, 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. Negative 18 and negative 12 is negative 30. So we have double checked it. We're 100% positive that this is the correct answer. Once again, the reason why they only ask you for the y value or maybe just the x value is so that you don't cheat. Because if they did give you the complete coordinate answers, you could just plug in the x and the y, see if it works. Plug in the x and the y, see if it works. Anyway, I hope this helps. Let's move on. We have another system here, and if you're trying to do linear combinations, you can't combine these yet because they're not organized. Of course, you want the x first, the y second, the equal sign, then the number. So this top one's in standard form. The top one's good to go. The bottom one's where you want to put the x term first and the y term second. So this minus sign in front of the 2x belongs to the 2x. So that's really a negative 2x that you're going to write out here in the front. Once again, you need to take this negative 2x and write it in the front. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my bottom equation with the negative 2x out in front, then the positive y, then the equal sign, then the negative 14. Now that top equation, I'm just going to rewrite it. It's x minus y equals 6. Now the question is, are they lined up? Yes, they are. Are they ready to combine and eliminate either x's or y's? And the answer is yes. You have a negative y and a positive y. You could combine those, and the negative y and the positive y will eliminate. So when you combine them, x, take away 2x, that's a negative 1x. And over here, negative y and positive y, those really do eliminate. There's no more y's. What about the equal signs? They come right down, so you put an equal sign right there. And last but not least, 6 and negative 14. If you have $6 and you owe $14, you're still going to owe $8. So negative 8 is your answer there. So this is a one-step problem, really easy to do. All you got to do is get rid of that multiplication of negative 1 in front of the x. So you're going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and you get your answer x equals positive 8. X equals positive 8. Now, you have an x value, you still need the y value, so you plug in the 8 on any equation. I want to plug it into the top one right here. 8, take away a number equals 6. What is that number? It has to be 2, right? 8, take away a number equals 6. So once again, I'm going to take the 8, plug it into the x, and it will read, let me do it over here. Instead of x minus y, it's going to be 8 minus y equals 6. Once again, the x equals 8, so instead of x, I put an 8 right there, and I still have the minus y equals 6 equals 6, okay? So now let's solve by getting rid of that 8. I'm going to subtract 8 here, subtract 8 over there. My new equation, equal sign comes down. I will still have a negative y equals negative 2. And once again, if you want to change that negative to a positive, you multiply both sides by negative 1 or divide both sides by negative 1. Either way, you're going to end up with a positive y equaling a positive 2. So there's your answer. 8 is x is 8, and y is 2. If we look at the answers over here that you have to type in, there it is. Coordinate format, parenthesis, 8 is first because it's the x value, comma, y value second, y value is 2, close parentheses. Type that in with no spaces, hit enter, you'll get full credit. Moving on, another system of equations. I'm going to pretend you didn't see that answer right there. Anyway, once again, are they lined up? X on top of x's, y's on top of y's, yes. Equal on top of equal, number on top of number. Yes, they're lined up. They are ready to do or attempted to combine the lines to eliminate something. But if you combine the lines, the x's will not cancel out. You would have to have this to be a negative 2x in order for it to cancel with the positive 2x. And the y's won't cancel out either because 2 plus 2 is 4y, and you want the y's to cancel out. In other words, the only way that this positive 2y will cancel out with this 2y is if one of them is a negative and the other one's a positive. So it's up to you. I'm going to cancel out y's by making this top positive 2y. I'm going to make it a negative 2y. So I'm going to change the plus to a minus. How? How do you change the sign of anything? You multiply by negative 1. So when I distribute negative 1 times negative x, that's positive x. Distribute negative 1 times positive 2y, that's negative 2y. Distribute negative 1 times positive 4 equals negative 4. There's my new modified top equation. The bottom equation is 2x plus 2y equals negative 20. Notice I didn't change anything on the bottom equation. It stayed exactly the same because I do now have my y's that are complete opposite values. You see, I could combine the negative 2y up here with the positive 2y down there, and they eliminate. Now, when I combine the x, the 1x plus 2x, that'll give me a total of 3 x's. The equal sign is going to come down, and over here, negative 4 minus 20. If you owe $4 and you owe $20, you're going to owe $24. So all we have to do now is get rid of that multiplication of 3 in front of the x. Let's get the answer for x. We're going to divide by 3. What you do to one side, divide by 3. You do to the other side. You're going to end up with x equaling negative 8. And of course, you could use a calculator. So your x value is negative 8. If you want your y value, all you have to do is plug in your x value of negative 8 into any equation. It could be the top or the bottom. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go for the top equation. Now the top equation reads negative x, I want to write it over here, negative x plus 2y equals 4. That's what it says, right? Negative x. Notice I put negative parentheses. Why did I not put x? Because I already know what x equals. X equals negative 8. So I'm actually going to plug in that value of negative 8 right in those parentheses. And of course, the minus minus changes to plus plus. So I really have a positive 8 plus 2y equaling 4. I want to solve for y, so I'm going to get rid of the 8 by subtracting 8, subtracting 8. My new equation will read 2y equals negative 4, which really means 2 times y equals negative 4. To get rid of that multiplication of 2, I'm going to divide by 2. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. I will end up with y equaling negative 2. So our answer is, in a coordinate format, the x value is negative 8, the y value is negative 2. If we take a look at that answer right here, that's what it is, negative 8 comma negative 2. Type it in with no spaces between your terms. Let's move on. Alrighty, this one is ridiculously easy, ridiculously fast. What we need to remember is that certain rule of exponents that says anything to the 0 power is equal to 1, okay? So does the 4 have a power of 0? No, it does not. There's an invisible 1 right there. Does the x have the power of 0? Yes, that means that that's going to change to a 1. So in reality, I have 4, but instead of times x to the 0, I really have 4 times 1, right? And then I have the y to the third, and then instead of times z to the 0, that's another times 1 right there, times 1 right there. So in reality, my answer is going to be 4 times 1 times y to the third times 1. We all know that that should be 4y to the third. The easy way of doing it is not even writing that x to the 0 is 1 or 0 to the 0 is 1. You could just scratch them out right from the start. X to the 0 is 1. It's not going to change anything. Z to the 0 is 1. It's not going to change anything. And there's your answer, 4y to the third. That's the answer that they have right here. Type it in, 4y to the third, no spaces between your terms. I think it's important to note that with your quizzes app right here, when you're typing it in, you type in the 4 and then the y, okay? And then when you want to do this power thing, you'd have to hit this button and it'll move your cursor up to the top. So again, you would type in the button 4 and it'll come out as a 4 right there. And then you would type in your y button, that'll be a y. And then you hit this one right here, and that will make it your cursor go up to the top up here. And that's where you type in your 3, right? So maybe I shouldn't have put the 1 up there. I'm just going to put the 3 up there. Okay, now let's say that you had other terms. Now this was the answer, but let's say you had other terms that you have to write out here, like +1, let's say. Your cursor is going to be up here and it's going to stay up there unless you hit this button. When you hit that button, the cursor pops back down to the regular location of a number, right? So you have to hit the right arrow for it to pop down from the cursor location up on the exponent down to the regular location. Okay, I hope this helps. Let's move on to the next question. And we have another variable expression here that requires simplification using the rules of exponents. So the main rule that we're using here is the one where you cancel things out, okay? So like, for example, let's do a really simple one before we actually do this one. If I had just x to the third over x to the second, what that really means is up on top, x to the third is x times x times x, and on the bottom, x squared is just the x times x. And we all should know that when you have the same identical thing up on top and on the bottom, it eliminates. X divided by x is 1, x divided by x is 1, and there's only a single x left over up on top. So your answer is x, or x over 1, whatever you prefer. Now, this one right here, let me make some space here. This guy, we want to cancel things out. Now, you could cancel out x's, but even before that, you have the number 28 divided by the number 7. 28 divided by 7 is 4. 7 times 4 is 28. So the number 28 divided by 7 is 4. And of course, that 4 will be up on top because that's where it's at. It's up on top. If the 28 would have been on the bottom and the 7 on top, then you'd have a 4 left over on the bottom. Okay, now moving on to the x's. How many x's do you have down here? 2. How many do you have up here? 5. So you could cancel out 2 x's with 2 of them, 2 of the 5. So once again, I could cancel both of these x's. So I draw a line through the whole thing. It'll cancel with 2 of these 5, leaving me 3 left over. So up on top, I have an x to the 3rd left over. Last but not least, I have 9 y's up on top, 1 y on the bottom. I could cancel one of these y's with one of these, and it will leave me with 8 y's up on top. So y to the 8th, right? I probably should have changed that 9 into an 8 right there. Again, 1 y canceled with one of the 9. I still have y to the 8th. Okay, so there's my answer. 4x to the 3rd, y to the 8th. You could put over 1, but in reality, you don't need divided by 1. It's just 4x to the 3rd, y to the 8th. When 1 is on the bottom, it's not necessary to write it. If 1's on top and everything else is on the bottom, you'd have to write the 1 up on top. But if 1's on the bottom, anything divided by 1 is that exact value, right? 5 over 1, what's 5 divided by 1? It's just 5. So right here, this divided by 1, it's just that. Okay, check out the answer. There it is. I believe this video is getting too long, so I'm going to end it here, and I will start up a second video on the next question, number 8.